Good morning, everybody. Dobro jutro svima. This session is going to be in English, and thank you for joining this session. The session key takeaway of the session is we are going to talk today in how to successfully transition your organization to Microsoft Teams. We developed this content to be accessible for the broader range for Skype for Business configuration, whether you're on premises today, whether you're online only, whether you're in a hybrid, and varying experience with Teams for who haven't even adopted the Teams, or you've just heard about Teams, to somebody who is closer to going to Teams only mode. What is the ultimate end state of your journey? The goal of the session is to cover the best practices for getting to Teams from Skype for Business, or actually to getting to Teams from organizations who never adopted Skype for Business. Review coexistence modes, having two services side by side, or having the resources available to help you to transition slower and help you make this journey to transition successful. Before I start, there is a link to Ignite 2019 Skype for Business to Teams session, which is very valuable, which covered some of the details which would not be able to be covered in this half an hour. So please check it out also, because it's containing a very valuable information. Since we announced the Microsoft Teams almost 4 or 5 years ago, thousands of Skype for Business customers have successfully adopted the team and successfully transitioned to the Teams. One of them, for example, is your neighborhood store, IKEA, or how Swedish called it, ICA, who actually not only transitioned their corporate office to Teams, but also went and beyond and integrated Teams with their first line workers, somebody who is actually serving you in the store together with the Teams for the first line workers, and actually made this as a truly digital transformation, even in these times during the COVID. So lots of people are asking, why Teams? Everybody considers Teams as a replacement for Skype for Business. That's true. Teams has all the functionalities which Skype for Business had in the past. The only thing is the Skype for Business is the platform where you were communicating and collaborating with your coworkers and business around the world. And it has been there since 2003, realistically, with the first version of LCS, even before the 2003. And this has been a perfect solution to help you what you do with these functionality. But however, Teams becomes our most innovative platform around which we created powerful ecosystem for team collaboration, application, joining devices. It's truly a transformation in your organization, how you used to communicate, to the way how you are going to collaborate in your company. When people ask me, is Teams replacement for Skype for Business, my answer to customers is Teams has all the functionalities of Skype for Business, but it even does more. I see it truly also replacement for the lots of exchange functionality in today's world, where you are sitting on a long email chain, and exchange functionality where people are using Exchange as a file storage instead of using a SharePoint and OneDrive. And Teams effectively front ends those services towards you. And why you are here? You're here because you're using Skype for Business, either online, server, hybrid, whatever combination is, and you're looking to, in an innovative way, how you're going to transition from your Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams. Teams, what we have found, Teams was always able to make the positive and valuable impact across your organization, not for you and as the IT admin, which you have one integrated platform with approved collaboration, which front ends multiple Office 365 services, but also for your users who are having an improved end user experience with meeting to start quickly, for example, improved video, sound, co-authoring, mobility, leveraging the corporate applications. Also, what it happens to your leadership, especially during this time when we are having a very large population of people who are working remotely, is faster decision-making time, accelerated innovation, and across not a single team, but across the organization, and ability to scale very quickly, even for the remote work. So my name is Zoran Cvetković. I am I'm a program manager at the Teams Customer Engineering, and my job is actually working with some of the strategic customers in these transition to Teams. Our team has worked with various companies and sizes, including the industries, in adoption of Teams and transition of Skype for Business to Teams in these organizations. Along those journeys, we identify the common factors that lead to success and have been used them as a foundation for this guidance and our guidances in the past and guidances for your workshops. Teams deployment is not all or nothing. Organizations can get value from Teams without the full migrations to Teams. So you can start getting those values today. Many customers have questions, where do they begin from? There are multiple possible paths to Teams. We found in the past that meetings is generally the great place to start, and it's very simple. While customers can use meetings to actually start driving Teams usage, and maybe having a Teams and Skype side by side as the most convenient way for your users to learn. Once your users see the potential of the platform and how it can be a vehicle also for digital transformation in the organization, they will be actually keen to start to move quickly to Teams. So adoption becomes the key. So since Teams is totally different way of operating and expand of capabilities, it's important to view this more than a typical upgrade where you would go and upgrade your infrastructure from Skype for Business 2013 to Skype for Business from Skype for Business 2015 to Skype for Business 2019. And by sending a single email, oh, by the way, we upgraded the backend system. This is actually a journey. And you have to be aware of, as the IT pros and as a champions in your organization, that this is a journey which is going to take some time. So there are multiple, as we said earlier, there are multiple factors when it comes to success for Teams for upgrade. And depending on scenario, it doesn't matter where you are, you will find yourself at certain step where you are in this part of the journey. If your organization has not started using Teams, the first step is to create a vision for the teamwork in your organization and how Teams enables this. Then you start onboarding and driving adoption in Teams in these scenarios. If your organization has already started using Teams and have helped users adopt the Teams, we recommend planning for the upgrade to Teams only and offboarding your Skype for Business. This is just a simple mapping basically in a journey, but we have guidance, best practices, resources to help you. And at the end of this presentation, we are going to share some of the links for all of this, so it will help you along this journey. The successful upgrade from Skype for Business to Teams requires planning for technical migration, but it's also very important to have a proper end user adoption of Teams. Together, they ensure a very positive end user experience and enable desired business outcomes. Remember, it's not just a technical migration, it's your user migration also, where your user adopt to the new product and start using the new product effectively. This guidance and the guidances we are having about built upon the success framework that reflects change management, best practices, and learning based on years of successful deployments across solutions, industries, and organizations. So a successful upgrade from Skype for Business to Teams requires planning for technical aspects of the upgrade, as well encouraging user adoption of Teams. Together, they help ensure that positive user experience, as I said earlier. The key item here is, number one, when you start the project, you have to enlist the stakeholders. And this is the key of the success of your project, bringing together the right stakeholders, the individuals who have a stake and need to be involved in planning and execution. You ensure that your project team includes executive sponsors representing business and IT, because they are going to be your biggest, not only sponsors, but biggest advocates for the Teams adoption, as well as IT pro, admin, user readiness lead, and also plan to bring some of the champions from your business side of the organization. And these champions will be critical in showcasing the value and rationale for the new tools and the processes in your company. They can also help you provide the feedback and awareness, training, support, planning, and everything you will be bringing when you go and do the larger adoption across the entire organization. Define the project scope. Taking time to define whole logistics, including scope, business goal, success metrics, risks, and timelines, will help ensure all stakeholders are aligned and working towards the same priority outcomes. And what I'm trying to say, timeline, that timeline has to be supported by executive sponsors. It could be adjusted, but it also has to be communicated by our organization. And we will talk about some of the aspects of this. As I said, plan for your technical and end user readiness. And then you implement the upgrade, but your upgrade has to have the flexibility when you do it by piloting, running Teams and Skype for Business side by side, and then moving users fully to Teams. Or if the other case is where you introduce a certain functionality one by one suits you better, go and execute that plan. And that plan has to both cover end user readiness and your technical readiness. And the last but not the least is maximize for the long-term success. And when we say maximize for the long-term success, it means network monitoring, measuring end user satisfaction, and other way to see that you are having consistent quality of delivering consistent quality delivering it to your user and the growth of other applications as the Teams as the platform grows in the organization. So one of the big questions, last year we announced the end of Skype for Business Online, and it will be retired on July 31st, 2021. Each Skype for Business Online customer should have a plan to transition to Teams. So if you are a Skype for Business Online customer, we are sunsetting Skype for Business Online on July 31st. Depreciation of Skype for Business Online also ends the support for Skype for Broadcast, Cloud Connector Edition, and on-premise call handling providing PSTN services, or known as OPCH, for Skype for Business Online users. So all of those services will end up on July 31st. So your rationale would be, if you have to move those users who are online, you may want to bring them back to on-premises and or migrate them to Teams only by this date. You may have a few questions around what happens to my Skype for Business on-premises environment. It's going to continue to work. You will still be able to communicate with Teams-only users, and you will be able to migrate the users after July 31st from your on-premises to Teams online, but if you were using an interim step to go to Skype for Business online and go to Teams only, that step is not available. So the big dilemma is always, how do I go and get to Teams from Skype for Business? There are two ways. If you want to lead with meetings, and why we are saying meetings, and I said earlier, the meetings is the easiest workload to be adopted by your end users. There are two ways to do this. There is a way of doing it with overlapping capabilities. This is a recommending side-by-side deployment method. Side-by-side deployment method means that you have full functionality of Skype for Business still in place, and you are introducing the full functionalities of Teams. Users will have to monitor two applications at the same time for chats. And if they receive the VoIP calls, it could be either in one platform or the other. Meeting can be scheduled in either product and control via policy how to remove the Outlook add-in. The other way of doing the approach, the side-by-side or overlapping capability in your configuration is known as islands mode, putting the user in islands mode. If you are planning to do the transition in island, which is recommended way, we found that lots of companies are very successful with it. It is important that you transition entire corporation via islands, find the saturation at the critical level, and then do a very swift migration to Teams only. If you are not comfortable with this approach, you can actually go with a set of selected capabilities. It basically follows the gradual upgrade method using Teams coexistence mode. Chat is not available in Teams until users move to Teams only. It gives you predictable routing of chat messages, so the users do not have to monitor two chat platforms. But what we have found is that it's also stressful for the users, because when you do the transition, you take away one product and you give them a new product at the same time. So Islands adoption, we have found it very successful and very efficient in lots of customers. And we've heard a better feedback through island transitions than actually through selected capability or what we called coexistence modes. Meetings in this select capabilities works the same way. If you deploy the Skype for Business, Skype for Business with Teams collaboration and meetings mode, that means that all the new meetings will be scheduled in Microsoft Teams, and existing meetings which were scheduled in the past in Skype for Business will continue to work. When it comes to calling and migration options, there are two aspects here. Serbia doesn't have something which is called calling plans. We're actually covering multiple European countries. Some customers in Serbia actually do have a calling plans, but that's the path where Microsoft is a phone provider. The other way to do the integration of voice was Skype for Business Online was a Cloud Connector edition, and the two other ways to integrate the voice for the online users were through on-premises configuration hybrid known as OPCH, or you can have your full enterprise voice deployment in your organization for your on-premises users. Most of the cases, what customers in Serbia have are one of these two. What we recommend in those scenarios, if you're going from a calling, there are two ways you can transition to calling options in Teams. One option is you go to the calling plans, and the second option is you are deploying something called the direct routing. Direct routing is a deployment which requires a session border controller, where your Teams infrastructure communicates to your PSTN provider via session border controller. This could be achieved in two ways. For your telephony providers or your large partners, they can host the direct routing for you. And in that case, they can actually host direct routing for multiple customers. There is a public documentation how this could be done. or you can host your direct routing by yourself by deploying a session border controller. So paths for transition are, if you are using calling plans, there is no need for migration. If you are using a Cloud Connector edition, you can either port the numbers or you can actually switch to direct routing. You will find this option actually more feasible because most of the Cloud Connector edition servers already contain a session border controller, which may require just a software upgrade, and it's the same type of hardware which was certified for the CCE. For the on-prem users, you have an option to port the numbers to a calling plan for the OPCH, or actually deploy the direct routing, and you can leverage the direct routing for the same scenario for your full on-premises enterprise voice users. For your hybrid deployments, there are a couple of very important pieces around the hybrid deployment. After the upgrade, hybrid can be disabled and your complete solution becomes a cloud solution. And both your Skype for Business Online and Skype for Business on-premises server can be decommissioned. As I said earlier, users homed online, must be moved to Teams only prior to the July 31st, 2021, as its announced date for the retirement of Skype for Business Online. And transition path for the Teams users homed on-premises will exist beyond the July 31st with the Skype for Business Online. So what post-update experience looks for you? That means all of your incoming calls and chat land in Teams. Teams users can interoperate with the Skype for Business users. Federation is enabled. New meetings are scheduled in Teams. Users can still join the old Skype for Business meetings, whether they are hosted on-prem, when they are hosted on-prem, and they would leverage the Skype for Business client, which still sits dormant on your machine. And your on-premises contact will become present in Teams. If the Teams client is not installed for the user for some reason, they can join the Teams via web simply by typing teams.microsoft.com. So how do we adopt meetings first? And this is a very simple way how we can do the adoption. If we go to Microsoft Teams admin portal, one moment, please. This is Microsoft Teams admin portal. As you can see, all the aspects of the Teams are managed in here. And if we look at one of the meeting policies in here, you would notice that we have various settings for the meetings policies. One of those options is allow the Outlook add-in, and which can be toggled on and off. This is basically how you control the meetings in your Teams deployment, but this is not the setting we are looking for. We are trying to encourage users to start immediately scheduling meetings in Teams. The first step would be to allow the Outlook add-in, but also the goal for us would be to remove Skype for Business icon from your client. As you can see in here, if you go line by line, you would not be able to do that toggle switch currently in the admin portal. So what we have to do is we have to resource to our good old friend, PowerShell. I'm already signed in the PowerShell portal. And as you are testing this functionality, we always do a small test before you impact the entire company or entire organization. Under the meeting policies, my apologies for under the meeting policies, what you do have is there is a policy which is called global. This policy is applied to the entire corporation. As you can see, it's not a custom policy. And if the user doesn't have any policy settings, that user will inherit the settings inside this global policy. So how can we see the status of that global policy? So take a look at my global settings. The command is get CST meetings policy. You are going to see that we have additional setting in here, which says preferred meeting provider for islands mode. And in this case, it says Teams and SFP. That means that your users who are having a global policy will have Teams and Skype for Business policy. What we always recommend is we recommend when you do the piloting, you do the test on a small scale. So what you can do, oops, moment, please. What you can do is you can create a new Teams meeting policy, give it the identity, and you can actually set a toggle switch to say preferred meeting provider for islands mode equals Teams. It's a very simple setting. And then what you do is you grant that meeting policy to a user. So this command would grant the policy name Synergia 20 with identity of the user called Rick at the domain. You can use a tag, you can omit a tag, but in general, the good practice is to use a tag field to prefix the policy names. So once the policy has been assigned to the user, you can basically check the status of the user to see what policy has been assigned to this user and whether it has been applied. So you can see that my user Rick is having an upgrade effective mode. That means that's the mode that the user is in islands, and his meeting policy is this one here. How this affects the user? So if I compare two users, I have a user Matt here, who is my islands user. As you can see, Matt has chat functionality both in Teams and Skype for Business. He also has a calendaring functionality in both. And he can schedule the meeting, as you can see, both for Skype for Business and Teams in his Outlook. In this case, I have a user Rick who has a very similar set of functionalities. Again, both of them are in the islands, but Rick is only capable of scheduling meetings in Teams. So if he goes in and puts the new appointment or new meeting request, this icon will only have an ability to schedule the meeting in Teams, and by one click of a button, this would actually create a new Teams meeting. It's very efficient because this allows the meetings to simply die as the people stop scheduling new Teams meetings, so you don't have to worry about the meeting migration, and you can also watch the progress of the adoption of Teams meeting in your call quality dashboard, and also monitor the quality of the meetings. So a couple of questions we have. What happens with the Skype for Business server? We are announcing the Skype for Business server vNext. It would be subscription-based server. The migration to the Skype for Business, it's going to be available in the second half of 2021. And the migration for a Skype for Business server 2019 to vNext will be an in-place upgrade. This would be supported for about 2 years for the in-place upgrade. And migration from Link 2013 or Skype for Business 2015 server will be the similar principle as we were doing it in the previous migration, where you would install the new server and add it to the topology. So we are not going away from Skype for Business server, but major investments in the new product development and everything are primarily focused to the Microsoft Teams. As you are going to Teams, we are being challenged with lots of questions. And here are a couple of mythbusters around. Switching costs, it's going to be very expensive. Why should I go to Teams? Teams already comes as part of your Microsoft 365, either E3 or E5 or F3 license. And customers with cloud implementation already have the core service available. So realistically, payback window for Teams comes within a window of 6 months or less. Teams is not extensible. there are other products which are not. Teams has a very large set of applications and growing application ecosystem, including native integration with Microsoft Office apps and making even Microsoft Flow and workflows more efficient and intelligent by using Teams. We also have a full-fledged bot framework, application extensibility, meeting extensibility, where you can publish your own developed applications within Microsoft Teams. Do I have to replace the hardware? No, because we will support a hardware for the next 2 years after the end date for the SIP interoperability of the Team phones. And also we would be bringing a SIP gateway for some of the other phones which were not previously supported. Moving existing workloads, it's not that simple. By proper technical planning and end-user planning, you are able to successfully do the migration. So where are my resources and guidance? Your first shop is aka.ms Skype to Teams. It starts from there. It explains why you should upgrade and when should your organization actually upgrade to Teams only, because the first step is the adoption. Successful adoption will drive a successful date for the Teams migration. Then, if you're looking for upgrade and planning workshops, we have interactive online workshops running once a week. There are 4 workshops with the guidance, best practices, and resources designed to kickstart planning and implementation. You can visit the link and you can sign yourself for one of them. It's happening at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time once a week. You have a Microsoft Chalk Talks. It's basically a free online workshop to learn the best practices and guidance around most popular and compelling scenarios around Teams. And last but not the least, we actually have the instructor-led training for Microsoft Teams. As we are coming close to the end of this presentation, the key takeaways is that Microsoft Teams is a true hub for teamwork with benefits for BDMs, IT pros, and end user. Grounding users in Teams help facilitate a successful upgrade. You actually have to adopt Teams before you go and actually do the upgrade. Upgrade to Team is not just a technical upgrade. It's all about your organizational change, and it's driving a true digital transformation. All customers can use Teams today. It's flexible approaches. You can go through side by side. You can go by announcing new features while retaining your Skype for Business. And Microsoft has guidance and resources to help you plan and upgrade your journey. And we have a very strong partner ecosystem in Serbia and in the region that can help you with this. Also, for the deep technical training for IT pros, we have a virtual hub, and also visit the aka.ms Teams roadmap to see what is coming, because we are bringing lots of goodies before the end of the year and in Q1. Thank you, and now we can open the floor for Q&A.
Thank you, Zoran. Many thanks for your presentation. We had a question regarding how difficult it is to really, from real experience, how difficult it is to migrate to Teams from big on-premise environments.
So I'm just trying to see if my camera is working. For some reason, my machine became sluggish. So we've worked with the large customers. You've heard probably of a couple of the companies we've dealt with. It's not as technical as the people would think. We found, as I said, success with islands more successful than actually adopting it via side, because your users will already be used to a chat in Teams. So migration from on-prem to the online becomes a technical task of moving a large users across. do a math, we can move a single user in 10 seconds if you do the proper deployment of PowerShell, and you can run multiple simultaneous PowerShell sessions. That allows you to do actually move large organizations relatively quickly over the multiple weekends. We have organizations which moved. I personally worked on an organization which is at 240,000, 300,000. So that it's not in a single weekend. It's multiple multiple weekends in a row, but it's doable. We always recommend to people to, if you are planning to do the migrations, do them on Friday afternoon. It takes time, and you don't want to leave the users half on one side and the half on the other side.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of more. Are data being preserved when you're migrating from Skype for Business to Microsoft Teams?
So the key two pieces of data when you move from Skype for Business on-prem to Teams is actually contact list and the meetings. So contacts are migrated during the move, so you would see the contacts lit up. We will also migrate the meetings and update the meetings for the users. Please keep in mind that we cannot update the meetings for the people who are hosted on premises. So that may require the rescheduling of the meetings. That's why the process where you remove the scheduling of the meetings early in the process in Skype for Business actually simplifies this whole process you're trying to do.
So basically, what we are saying, if we start with migration, we need to cancel already scheduled meetings in Skype for Business to be able to move to Teams and reschedule them over there, or we can do that centrally, by using some kind of automatic.
So meeting migration service works. So if your mailbox is online, we would do it through meeting migration service. That's automatic. On premises, there is a meeting migration tool also you can run on premises, and you can download it. That would go what I'm talking about on-premise Exchange mailbox. That tool will go through your via Outlook client and automatically update the meetings. So those are the two options. So if you do the move CS user to online, that meeting migration, if your Exchange mailbox is online, will be moved automatically.
Okay, we have one hand raised. Can you please maybe paste in the chat? Can you type in your chat your question? Okay, I can allow to unmute.
I'm looking at the audience. I think I don't see a foreign.
Yes. Hi, Zoran. Omar, it's here.
Hi, Zoran. We can switch, I think, to the local language because I'm looking at the audience. Yes. Ok, možemo da pređemo na drugi jezik. Izvinjavam se, ali sesija je zakazana na engleskom.
Sve ok, samo ću kratko jedno pitanje. Pozdrav veliki i drago mi je da si ponovo na sinergiji sa predavanjem. Kako je po tebi budućnost Teamsa? Kako vidiš, ja neću postaviti tehničko pitanje iz jednog razloga što toga imamo dosta. Više me interesuje kako trenutno Microsoft vidi Teamse i kako je vidi u nekoj 5 years, 5 godina unaprijed u kompeticiji sa ostalim nekim audio, video, da i ne spominjamo sada svim toolovima koji se nalazi. Šta možemo u krajnjoj liniji očekivati mimo nekog, jer vidimo da se ovo pravo puno razvija u nekoj bliskoj budućnosti?
Pa, Microsoft Teams je proizvod koji u istoriji Microsofta najbrže raste. Nikad takav rast nismo imali. Mi vidimo Teams kao platform. I jako ćete puno puta čuti riječ Teams za platform. Jer je Teams stvarno platforma napravljena za development na Teamsu kao proizvodu. Teams vam omogućava da razvijete svoje biznis procese i svoje biznis aplikacije, da ih ubacite u Teams, tako da sa dodatnom kolaboracijom i sa svim ostalim stvarima možete imati vrlo jaku alatku u svojim rukama. I kad ga razvijate ga za sve 3 platforme. Razvijate ga i za web, i razvijate aplikaciju i za rich client koji su PC i Mac i razvijate za mobile. Tako da ćete naći da to je jedan veliki korak koji se dešava. To je nešto što se zove App Templates for Teams. Imamo Q&A bot, za ovu priliku nismo imali, za ovu sinergiju nismo imali mogućnost da vam uradimo demo, ali pogledajte App Templates, šta sami vi možete sa vrlo malo znanja u developmentu da implementirate na Teamsu i kako da popravite biznis proces. Ima aplikacija za scheduling, za dolazak u vašu kancelariju, u vaš office, tako da možete da kažete ako se smanjuje, ako otvarate office za određeni procenat zaposlenih, oni mogu preko mobilne aplikacije da se prijave da će da budu tamo, tako da možete da gledate popunjenost office ili da vidite ko office. Običan search Teams App Templates, pogledajte šta nudimo i probajte da implementirate neku, bit ćete ugodno iznenađeni. Hvala na pitanju, Mara.
Hvala.
Hvala na pitanju. Da li imamo možda još neka pitanja? Ako neko hoće možda i usmeno. Da, ako neko hoće i usmeno da pita, samo podignite ruku u okviru Teamsa da možemo da vam omogućimo da pričate. To je da postavite direktno pitanje. Dobro. U principu, ajde sačekat ćemo da vidimo da li će još neko podići ruku. Ja bih pitao, Zorane, ako ne zamerate, spomenuli ste lepo temu oko povezivanja sa telefonijom, gde Microsoft nema neke trenutno u planu opciju da postane phone provider u Srbiji. Da li tu možda imamo neke naznake da će se to u budućnosti promeniti ili...
Nažalost, ne mogu vam dati nikakav komentar, to su poslovne tajne što se toga tiče. Mi ćemo trebamo da proširimo tržište kao phone provider, to se već na zadnjem Ignite-u najavilo na par drugih država. Svako to proširenje zahteva da mi postanemo telefon provider, isto kao što su Telekom ili Telenor, ne znam ko je u Srbiji trenutno telefonski provider. Da, upravo tako da moramo da pokrijemo zakonske regulative, nekada zahteva vremena. Ono što je vrlo dobra solucija za postojeće provajdere je da oni mogu da rade hosting Skype Session Border Controllera i mi ćemo donositi dodatne funkcionalnosti u samom admin portalu Teamsa da vi možete da direktno na primjer od Telekoma da odete da kupite brojeve telefona ili prebacite vaše brojeve i da vam oni odmah urade provisioning tih brojeva na vašem Teamsu. Zapravo vi uradite provisioning, oni vam rade porting brojeva i rade, tako da vrlo jednostavno ćete kroz portal moći da menadžete i to. To su neki planovi za blisku budućnost.
Odlično.
Samo ću kratko skočiti, izvinjavam se. Ovo, Zorane, što se spomenuo posljednje oko davanja SBC-a, znači i brojeva, to će biti moguće sa lokalnim telekomima da uradi provisioning sa Teamsima i lokalnom numerologijom.
Da.
Hvala.
Da, to će biti moguće. Vaš telko bi trebao da postane partner, bit će proces kako će se to raditi i onda će oni biti listani kao telefon provider mimo Microsofta u nekim zemljama.
Odlično, ali to će nam dati mogućnost da naši korisnici u regionu mogu da izaberu svog provajdera i da jednostavno korišćenjem Teamsu u svega par klikova dođu do telefonije kompletno, da mogu da zamene svoju on-premise telefoniju.
Da. Telkos već danas mogu da vam rade taj hosting, samo što nećete moći iz portala da kažete hoću da kupim 5 brojeva od provajdera a to već danas možete da uradite i hosting model za Session Borders controllere postoji, up to date je, imamo već jako puno partnera koji to rade. I to ne morate biti telekom provider, vi možete da kupite trunk od nekoga i da radite hosting za male firme. To je sasvim moguće.
Dobro.
Uputstvo je nalazi se na Teams portalu, kako se radi.